Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Aurora. This is the Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans webinar presentation for February 6th already. I'm checking my little calendar down there. So very excited that this is the level 1 presentation. It corresponds with lesson 7 of the recorded online classes on Teachable. I encourage and invite everyone to watch those lessons. I consider them to be like the recorded homework lessons or like the textbook for the lecture that I speak about here. So although I have extensive notes right here on my little tablet that I always want to hit all the most salient points that I do in recorded lessons. And sometimes time gets away from me, or sometimes I forget. So it always fleshes out to the things that I say here are not a mere like reiteration of everything that I say in the recorded lessons. There's new stuff, and I say things in a slightly different way. So many students say things make a lot more sense if you watch the recorded lesson. So invite and encourage everyone to check them out, and not merely a sales pitch. If you need tuition, contact me for that. So topic for lesson 7, level 1, is the rainbow journey. And that is the journey of essentially an impulse of consciousness that is coming from unity, where, white light, additive color mixing, into the physical reality, and then back from the physical reality into unity consciousness, okay? Before I get into that, Teddy, and welcome, and thank you for your participation in the class, you're wonderful, has a question that wanted to know, because I was showing, let me show you, because I'm all about the shungite. For anyone who watches, who's new, and you see me drinking from this cup, you're like, what is this strange thing? This is a solid chunk of shungite, and like, I'm not some kind of a salesperson, even though I sell shungite soap in my store. I'm not like connected to the shungite industry. It's one solid piece of this mineral, and the mineral is special because it contains naturally occurring buckyballs or fullerenes or carbon-60. Carbon-60 is also lab created, but I'm more skeptical of the lab created ones just because we don't know who's running and operating the lab and the purity of it and everything like that. So this comes out of the ground, literally, and it contains these fullerenes that are very excellent in terms of protecting us from fry, yes, I call it fry, the rampant EMFs. So before we got going on the recording, I was just showing the class in between, got my little tablet here, and this black disc here, I just taped a big giant chunk of shungite to the back over here, and I have a tile that I put on top of my router. And so I was saying that because I'm always trying to give other people tips about how to live effectively, how to conserve your energy and stay healthy and vital, even in this environment where it's very challenging because we're basically exposed to a ton of pollution all the time. So Teddy was asking, what about 5G? Will shungite help against 5G? So yeah, I started drinking the shungite water before I moved from Northern California to Southern California, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm moving from like the redwoods down to where it's Wi-Fi everywhere and you're going to just get fried. So I thought, okay, I got to find something else. So I learned about that. So I was just drinking the water. Eventually I learned that you can take, there's a powdered form of shungite and you must get food grade. And I put it into a coconut oil base, and I ate that because it crosses the hydrophobic, meaning water-fearing cell membranes that are made out of fat. The shungite goes into your body and stays in your body. So if you drink it as water, it's wonderful, it's fantastic, but it flows through your body and does not lodge internally, like in your bones and in your fats, as much as if you have it in a lipid form, and you are then kind of like, I think it's like being internally shielded. It can replace the cesium-137, which is the byproduct of human fission, Fukushima crap, that gets accumulated in our bones. It's not good stuff. You don't want to have C137 in your bones. That's the cesium, that's the bad stuff that gives you cancer. The shungite molecules can replace the cancer-causing cesium molecules. They displace, get the radiation crap out of you, so it's very protective. So the question is it enough for 5G? And my sad answer is no, I don't think it is. Not to be a defeatist at all. I don't want you to think that my shoulders are down. It's like, no, we will be okay, even though 5G is here. But I don't want anyone to think like, oh, like 5G, turn it on. Like, I'll just like paint myself all over with shungite and I'll be fine. Like, I really think that we as human biological organisms have reached the limit of the amount of crap that we can possibly, be subjected to and have to deal with on a regular basis. It is just completely, it's like the torture levels have been turned up. And it's like, no. At this point, I don't want everyone to have to be like, okay, we'll just like, I'll walk around and complete like shungite armor and then we'll be fine. And we'll paint our houses with shungite paint and put this all up. It's like, no, what we really need to do is organize effectively in order to shut down the 5G network, which is hugely hugely troubling. And, also, I'm very cautious, whatever, on the way that I speak about the terrestrial technosphere. I don't ever want anyone to say, oh, Aurora says the terrestrial technosphere is self-aware and is our friend, and so just drop your guard and hug a demon and everything is great. No, 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 no. I'm never saying that. I'm never transhumanist, and I'm never saying like, oh, just let technology run rampant because it's just part of the terrestrial technosphere and that's, a benevolent. No, I really don't think that at all. So yeah, I think it's hugely important for us to band together as living biological organisms and say, no, we do not wish to have 5G. It's literally a cellular assault, and do all the things we can to protect ourselves from it, because my router down there is 5G, but 5G does not travel very far, so it only really encompasses this room. So if you go into slightly outside of the house, the rays aren't there. And what the shun does, if you put a slab or whatever on top of there on your tablet, it mitigates the waves and the frequencies. It does not block them, but it makes them so that they are more amenable to. She's going to bark. Oh, I'm so sorry that she's barking. Kids are playing outside. That's all. It's okay. Cheeky. Hey. I know kids are playing outside. Cool it. Okay, enough. No. You need to cool it. Cool it. Here. Okay. All right. Okay, you guys just saw me bribe my dog, and now hopefully she'll be nice and quiet. Yeah, Ruben, did I have your name right? Robin, sorry. Cheeky, you cool it, be quiet. Robin has a very good suggestion. I'm not a salesperson. It comes from EMF.com, headscarf at night. I'm totally with you. Like if you can, turn off your Wi-Fi, even though I know your neighbors probably keep theirs on. And yeah, there's different things you can do. There's materials that you can even do and make kind of like a shield around your bed, or you can put a headscarf on, or I've seen beanies, and also hoodies where it's like woven into the fabric. So all of this stuff is super great. It's like if your country has been invaded and you're engaging in guerrilla warfare, like that's really, really great, but you don't want to just have to be like, oh, I'm going to live happily wearing my EMF hoodie while there's horrible invading monsters. Our planet is being invaded by horrible monsters. Let's fight the monsters. Let's not just, live happily in front of that. And thank you very much. Cheeky, you have a fan club and they don't even mind when you bark. So thank you very much. Teddy's saying, I live in the first city for 5G rollout. Anything I can do short of moving? Possibly you might be able to speak at a city council and bring your concerns to there. Here's the real problem. Please be safe, because I'm really seeing 5G as creating a type of psychosis in humans, that humans can no longer think clearly and think their own thoughts in that radiation-filled environment. And I'm noticing it, when I say psychosis, this is like not being connected to reality, but this is also like levels of violence and skepticism and paranoia that I'm seeing. It's like everybody's tripping, but not a fun, happy trip. Like the type of trip where, it's like French Revolution, they were all tripping on ergot. That's not a good trip. This is not like happy, fun mushroom trip. This is like they all were afraid of everything and became extremely violent. This is the type of stuff that I'm seeing. Not that I'm sensing French Revolution violence is going to happen, but in terms of conversation that I'm seeing on social media, there's a great deal of emotional instability that is directly related to 5G. So what do I do? Because I'm actually bearing it quite well. I do all the things that I can in terms of shungite topically and internally. And, I spend time away from computers as much as I can and go into my backyard and actually do sun gazing and actually connect to the sun and the stellar network. So, as much as possible, I know it can be hard in an urban environment, but try to do something like that. Teddy says, I have a Faraday cage around my router and shungite pyramid on top. That is freaking awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah, I've got a couple of orgonite pyramids around here. I think Faraday cage around the router is a great idea. And they do sell those commercially. And, people can check them out. I'm not a salesperson, but you know what I'm talking about. Ben says, Ibrahim Karim has done some interesting work regarding EMF mitigation. Look into his talks about biogeometry. Thank you for that suggestion. You are wonderful. So now I think, that's excellent. We did a little bit of housekeeping because, something, when I recorded these lessons 6 years ago, 5G was not an issue. Things were so different 5 years ago in terms of connectivity and where the signals were. And I lived someplace much more rural and whatever. I wasn't as assaulted. I didn't have a smart meter at that. Like when I think back on those times, like those were like golden years. Like things were so much better then. So yeah, I have a smart meter here. We have all these different things. I definitely sense a huge impact on being exposed to those things. It's a good question, Joelle. You have to ask Teddy about that. Does a Faraday cage around your router block the internet? Do you only use it at night? Does it have a kind of a thing? I think it's a kind of like a box that has like a little hole where the cord comes out. These are all good considerations. Okay, let me move on to the information of level 1 for today, which is, it corresponds with lesson 7. It's called the rainbow journey. So first, let me get sorry, I'm not so prepared. I have to get my little magical trackpad, and my little thing over here, this, and I want to start with some drawings. First, I'm just going to draw a simple prism. Not a prison where you're stuck. Let me make my face bigger. But a prism where you refract light. And we're also going to talk about Sir Isaac Newton in this class. And also, I'll make the point that light can be refracted through many different shapes. It doesn't only have to be a triangular, here we have a cross-section of a triangular structure. Not only a triangular structure, it can go through many different things. Like what I used as the example in previous lessons, here's a glass of water. And here's the surface of the water, which is a lens. It's a slight thickening of the water. And if we have, let's say, a pencil that goes in over here, it looks like the pencil is broken because it goes over there. This is like old science, trick for kids. It's not that impressive to most young people these days, but it's the idea that the light, as it is going through the air, which is a less dense medium than the water, which is a more dense medium, is moving at a different rate. So here it's moving actually faster, and when it gets to here, it goes through that lens and it gets slowed down a little bit. And as it gets slowed down, it bends. So the same exact, and that's just through, a lens of water. So every time when you see the phenomenon of an actual rainbow in the sky, you're seeing the end result of refraction through a little tiny water droplet. So the light goes in through there, and then here's where the rainbow comes out, but I'm just not changing my pen color. So it doesn't have to only be a triangular shaped object. Refraction can happen through many different objects. Here is a beam of white light coming from the sun, our nearest star. And it's white light because it has a color recipe. And we are talking now about additive color mixing. So in additive color mixing, if I say here's just very, here's red plus orange plus yellow plus green plus blue plus violet, all of these colors, I didn't draw them all, equals all of this plus this plus this plus this plus this equals white light. Now this is different than mixing paints. Where's some paints? Like if I took all the paints in my studio, if I mixed up all of my, pigments, blah, 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 put them into a big giant bucket and mix them up, I would not come out with the color white. I would come out with the color black. And the difference is additive versus subtractive color mixing. So when I paint with paint, I'm painting with little tiny pigments. And really what you see as the end result, here on a painting or whatever, is those different pigments are screening out light, that the only light that reaches your eye is that which can reach your eye through all these different layers that are screening out. Subtractive. You're taking away light. And so white is like the primary color, and black is what happens when you add together all of the colors in subtractive color mixing. But that is different, literally the opposite of what happens in additive color mixing, which is what happens when you're painting with pure light. So painting with pigments is an approximation that we as artists do that's not painting with pure light. If you could get an actual laser, or if you could work with some kind of, sculpted, like, what's that stuff that's like tubes of heated gas, like neon, sculpted tubes of neon. Or if you do screen the set design in theater, where there are, you've got lamps like this, and then you put a color over the lamp, that is the closest thing to painting with pure light. Or something like stained glass, where you have little pieces of colored glass that pure light passes through, and then there's a mixing together of these different things. It is additive color mixing. So basically, white light that comes from the sun, like if I draw, here's the sun over here that is emitting all of this beautiful light to us. This light contains all of the colors of the rainbow as its recipe. We see it as white. As it gets to this edge over here, that's just like the meniscus of the water. It's we're moving through either the vacuum of space or vast interstellar space, or through the atmosphere of our planet, this is a less dense area. This is, vacuum or air. It's not very dense. So the light is moving. We'll talk about the speed of light. It is moving at a relatively fast rate. When it gets to the solid, it slows down a little bit. And as it slows down, all of the light waves bend, and they bend at different speeds. And what happens is refraction, or the splitting into the different colors of the rainbow. So here's red, and I am going to draw this all out, even though it's going to take a little bit of time, because I'm going to be kind of accurate about it. You're starting to see the color proportions, that red is the longest wavelength, and that yellow, you can't even see yellow, orange and yellow become shorter and shorter wavelengths. Here I'm going into green. I hope you can see this color green. So now we're starting, all of these little wavelets get smaller and smaller as they bend. I'm going to simplify this a little bit. We'll just make one color blue instead of two colors of blue. I don't know if that's a blue. No, that didn't even work. Hold on a second. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to do this on the fly. This is supposed to be blue. I'm trying to do it without completely boring you. So these squiggles get smaller and smaller until we get up to violet. Violet is the smallest squiggle. You see, little tiny, tiny, tiny wavelengths, right? So this is how rainbows are created. And it is this refraction or bending of light. Here, let me get to a better color over here. This can be a crystal. This can be a prism. And this can also be you. So now I got to go to a picture of you. That's this over here. Hold on a second. Okay, so if I have a color, here is white light, and this is coming from the sun. And in lesson 1, or the lesson 7 of level 1, got this split up into two parts. There's part 1, which is all about this rainbow journey, and part 2, which is about the singularity. So consider this in level 1, the introduction to the concept of what is the singularity. Let me drink a little bit. Because the sun is a doorway to infinity. Basically, the singularity is synonymous with infinity. So let me draw an infinity symbol here. That white dot is infinity. It's the singularity. And it's also, if I get a sun color here, if I make a big giant star around there, there's a singularity at the center of the sun. But there's also a singularity at the center of the earth, at the center of our planet. And there's also a singularity at the center of us. And that is what this convergence point is right here. So the singularity, I know I've just jumped topics, is the end result of the infinite stretching of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. And I can draw that fabric like a flat tablecloth over here. You can imagine that's a tabletop. And if I put something heavy on top of the tabletop pointing downward like this, it stretches down. And that point down here, that's the infinite point of stretchiness. It's basically what happens with a black hole, that it stretches to the point of infinity. We can understand that level of stretchiness in the form of a sphere. And if I say this is a flat line drawing of a three-dimensional sphere, and if I take big, giant God fingers, and I make them go in this direction, and this direction, and this direction, the stretchy fabric of space, time, and consciousness begins to dimple inward, and it begins to make these vortex shapes. And the vortices stretch inward like this, and they all stretch to the same convergence point, because the singularity is a doorway to infinity. There's only one singularity, but there are many doorways to get there. So the way that I draw that is by showing, like, if this is infinity and this is the singularity, and it's like in a house, make a little roof, so you can say, that's the house of infinity. There are all these different doorways. Like, here's a doorway that is inside of your own heart. Here's the doorway that's inside of the sun. Let's make this one over here. This is the doorway that's inside of the planet. But they all go to this house. So now you can see I'm trying to use like the rules of perspective to show that all of these different doorways, when you go through them, you end up in the same room. You do not go to different places. You do not go to different singularities. They all take you to the same place. So it's what I want to say magical is a unusual structure to reality. And really understanding and embodying that structure to reality is the key to being able to perform the flying rainbow lasagna maneuver. So it is the understanding of what the singularity is, and that it is infinity, and that there are many different doorways to infinity in these various locations. There's also a doorway to infinity on a subcellular level in each one of your cells. If this is your cell membrane and this is your nucleus, inside of every one of your nuclei, you've got your little dancing DNAs. And that is also a doorway to infinity, that when you open that door, it goes in there too. So think about how many cells you have in your body. Trillions of cells. It's trillions of doorways. Each person has trillions of doorways to get to infinity. There's so many stars. There's so many planets. It is almost uncountable. So there are almost an uncountable number of ways to get to infinity. It is all the same infinity. These are not separate places. And energy or consciousness, so let me just drink a little bit of water here. Consult my notes. A big emphasis on today's lesson is that light is awareness. Because I just got through by saying additive light mixing. Light comes from the sun. I'm pointing out my window. Here's white light coming from the sun. Light is awareness. So anytime where I'm saying the word light, you can interchange or swap out the word awareness, because I'm speaking about the physical phenomenon of light that says, oh, my eye can see all the colors of the rainbow, and the way that they're mixing together. And that's physical light. But what I'm really, when I'm drawing this stuff around the physical body in these paintings, I'm drawing the light that is perceived but is non-physical. It is the light that is perceived with your higher dimensional system of perception, your higher faculties. So your physical faculties, regular eyeballs, and your regular squishy brain sees regular physical light and interprets it, and, builds a picture of reality about that. Your third eye, or your eye of insight, or this sixth chakra here, your Christ chakra, your imagination, perceives non-physical light. Awareness. Light equals awareness. So I could say that sentence, I could say it easily as your inner eye perceives awareness, as opposed to perceives non-physical light. And I can also scribble over here and I could say, oh, look, I've drawn all of these colorful layers of awareness that exist outside of the physical presence of a person. So we're talking about the phenomenon of awareness that comes from the singularity that is at the center of our star, but at the center of many stars. And what happens is that awareness begins to circulate outward. I say outward, that's in quotes, comes in through the highest frequency chakra, the violet chakra, and then it circulates through all of our layers of being. So it's our light body, it's our awareness body. Our awareness body has many different layers, like a layer cake or like a lasagna, and the layers are of different density. And the light that is coming through these different layers of density is bent, just like the light coming through that glass of water that I drew before gets bent. Your light comes in through here, but then, it goes into a different level of density and it hops on over to there. So that's a exaggerated hopping, but just to get the idea, it bends. So every time this light comes through, hold on a second, let me see if I can get this other picture here. Every time this light comes through chakra, good, I'm squashing, bringing this image over here so that you can see every time light goes through a chakra or a new layer. Can I get the annotation back? There we go. It bends. So it comes in through the top. Here I'm starting on a new picture over here. It comes in through the top, and that is the least amount of distortion. It hasn't bent very much, but then it goes through another layer, through another, meniscus, and has to bend. Then it goes through another one and has to bend. And as it keeps on bending, you can see the waveforms get bigger. It gets more and more distorted, more exaggerated in its waveforms until it becomes part of the physical body, physical realm, not just the physical body. It becomes a part of the realm of physical phenomena, physical light, physical sound, heat, molecular movement, metabolism. It becomes a physical phenomenon. But that is not the end of the journey, because what the journey of awareness is supposed to be is then also in a complementary direction, from the physical realm all the way back through all of these layers of density. As we get less and less and less dense, until we are reweaving all of that light that got split apart back up into unity consciousness. So again, light is awareness. All of these layers of rainbow self, rainbow experience, rainbow existence are layers of awareness. We are made out of pure unity consciousness, white light that is all stuck together, but we're like the crystal. That energy comes into us and it gets refracted into this experience of having many different rainbow layers and being individuated in terms of awareness. And then we have these experiences, and then we take all those experiences and we weave them back together. So, big note here that our body, I've spoken about it as a refinery of light. We're a refinery of light. We're also a refractory, not factory, refractory. We're a place where refraction happens. We refine light. So that means that we go from the general to the specific. That's like, if we're taking light waves that go all over the place, hither, thither, and yon, and we're focusing them until they're like a laser light beam. That's one of the things that we do. And so that's being a refinery. And when I spoke about that too, when we do that, what we're doing is refining our consciousness, our definition of self, the characteristics that we say this is the real me, as opposed to the not real me, or the accidental me, or the totally distorted me. And we're also refining experiences in reality. We're going away from the periphery where we are distorted and we have distorted experiences, like you wake up in the morning and an alligator bites your face before you get out of bed. That's not a usual experience. That is a distorted, unusual experience on the periphery. We refine away from those experiences towards the central core timelines, things that we really are, the experiences that we that are truthful, that are like real, viable experiences. So that's what this body is. We refine light and we also refract light. Okay. Hans asks an awesome question. He says, how come there are two blue colors and not purple or magenta in the rainbow chakras? Excellent segue into Sir Isaac Newton. So all this stuff about the prism that refracts the light, I'm not an Illuminati making this hand signal, that little triangular symbol, all of that comes, most of what we understand in terms of the physical phenomenon of light comes from the work of Sir Isaac Newton. He was a wonderful scientist in Great Britain around the 1600s. And I spoke about him, I think, last week in this class. That up until that point in, Western European society, things had gotten very superstitious. It was very much ruled by the Catholic Church, and the impression of reality and what's real and what's truthful was very much defined by supernatural perceptions, or let's say superstition, not something that can be measured with perceived with the five senses, or measured with standard measuring objects. And Newton came along mid 1600s or so, and he said, hey, wait, let's do things different. Let's say I have these five senses that everybody can agree upon, and I'm now going to sense the world with my five senses and describe it as much as I can. And that's physics, describing the physical world. And Newton did a lot of experiments using light and using the prism to refract light, and then looking at the actual end result of the light waves that happened. So Newton did have a semi-mystical perception of the world. That was his cosmology, or his worldview was semi-mystical. So he was influenced by this idea that 7 is sacred, and that it's like a sacred divine number, and that there should be seven things in general, whatever you personally think about sevens or whatever. That was where he was coming from. So when he saw the light and the colors that it makes when you split a beam of light, he split it up into having two different shades of blue. We've got red, orange, yellow, green. There's blue, then there's indigo, and then there's violet. So in terms of cultural interpretation, many people have said that blue and indigo are not the same colors that we currently understand as blue and indigo. Like if you would look on my dress, you can see that there's a more greenish aquamarine color here that is, I would call blue, like a lighter blue color, and then a darker blue color in indigo. That's like the color of denim jeans, the color, like there's a difference between sky blue, that is this, light, or the color of the ocean and reflections of the ocean, as opposed to deeper blue that is more like lapis lazuli. And in the 1600s, they didn't have actually that many different pigments. blue is a very, very difficult pigment to create, to recreate that color artificially is very challenging. It's what blue was like one of the most expensive paints in the not in the modern world. So yeah, rather arbitrarily, the answer to Hans is rather arbitrarily, Newton decided that there should be 7 basic colors, and that there should be this distinction made between a turquoise blue and like a deep indigo blue. And we can, if we were going to say, let's make 9 colors of the rainbow, like we can make a distinction between a green that is like a very bright leaf colored green, like this is a very bright leaf green, or an evergreen color, like a dusky green that is darker or whatever. The really interesting stuff about this, when you start to get into color theory, has to do with how violet is actually made. And it is actually made through additive color mixing. So if you really want to know the truth about all of this, there is no such color as violet. That when you look at, let's just draw a very simplified rainbow. Here's the smallest wavelength, which is violet. And here's the, the outer color, which is red. Sorry, my pen doesn't always work efficiently on the screen. So violet, ooh, I gotta use the right colors here. Hold on a second. Violet is the end result of red plus blue. Hold on a second. Right? Red plus blue. This is additive color mixing. Red plus blue equals violet, meaning that they are like transparent objects that are overlapping on top of each other. When we see violet in the actual rainbow over here, what you're seeing is the harmonic overlapping overtone of red plus blue. You have these rings of light, or like these waves. Like here's a ring, and there's there's like an up and a down to every wave. And so when we see a rainbow, we're only experiencing like the half of that, like a semicircle, not a full circle. And if we were to understand, like, that what's going on behind the scenes down here, all of these waves, they bounce off of each other. Like they bounce down there and then they bounce back up here. It's a whole circle that is talking to itself. Sorry if my words aren't describing this incredibly effectively, but the whole point is the red is bouncing down here and the blue is bouncing down here, and they overlap. Like if you're playing 2 notes at the same time, here's a C and here's an E, and if we play them both at the same time, we get a chord. And violet is actually a chord. It is the end result of both the red and the blue frequencies overlapping in just the right way to give us the violet there. And if you've ever seen a supernumerary rainbow, that's where you have the basic, red through violet over here, but then you also have further rings inside of that violet, and those are the harmonic overtones. Just like I can sing a note, there's the primary note that sounds like but then there are the other notes that sound like do 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 do, and that is from overlapping harmonic overtones. So basically, the end result, violet is a harmonic visual overtone. There's a video about this that you can watch. I don't know if I have it in the supplemental homework videos, that is called "Violet is Not a Color," that describes all of this. Also, there is a mistake in my recorded lessons. Level 1, lesson 7, I attribute the binary system to Newton, but that is wrong. I'm completely wrong. And I would applaud any student that brings mistakes like that to my attention. No, it was invented by Leibniz, and he was one of the colleagues and competitors of Newton at the same time, a fellow scientist, a colleague, and a competitor. And so he invented binary. I bring up binary today in order to tell you about transcending duality. As I was speaking about last week, Flying Rainbow Lasagna transcends duality. So we're still talking about the rainbow, but just as a brief aside, binary is the description of the world using only ones and zeros. So we have 2 integers, 2 numbers. We have the number 0, which represents nothingness, and then we have the number 1, which represents somethingness. So this is pretty basic. Like there's on and then there's off. And it's hard for people to break out of that binary viewpoint of reality. It's easy, though, if you look at the numbers. if I ask you, class, you are all very, very smart people, please count for me. How many integers, how many numbers am I holding up on your screen? Count for me the integers. This is like Sesame Street. I see this many integers. How many are there? 1, 2. 1, 2. So the numbers that I am offering to you, I will offer you the number 0. I will offer you the number 1. Neither of those numbers is the number 2. But look at how many options I'm offering to you. I'm offering you 2 options. So the way that we transcend that dualism, the way that we transcend the binary viewpoint of reality is to say, even though we might only be being shown an integer of representing no value or an integer representing some value, I want to keep want to use that word, the options show you innately that there's more options than just nothingness and somethingness. There are more options than that, that there's another option on top of that. If we have the number 0 and we have the number 1 and we have the number 2 by implication, then what did I just do? All that I did, I made like a series. And once you have 3 numbers in a series, it's easy to just keep going. I keep on adding 1. 0, and I add 1, I get 1. Oh, Chica, be quiet. Quiet down. Okay, we need to focus here. We're focusing. Hey, I'm going to bribe you. I'm going to bribe you. Come on, be cool. Here you go. Have a bribe. Okay. All right. Yes, that is how you break out of the binary system. Oh, quiet down. Hey. No. All right. Breaking out of the binary system by understanding that although you're being only given the measurements to describe nothingness or somethingness, you are being given 2 options. And it's like saying, oh, quiet down. You have I1 and you have I2, but then you also have inner perception. Hey, we can't have so much barking. We gotta work, boss. You know that this is work day. No barking, okay? No barking. So sorry, guys. Usually it's just very quiet and good. Thank you for understanding. You're always very good. Okay, no, enough, really. Hey, enough. Please, no more. Oh, Brandon's asking. First of all, Brandon, good to see you. My friend in Alaska. I know that you guys were not connected to the internet for a little while, so I'm happy that you're back. I will happily answer your question. Brandon asks, is the singularity also known as the assemblage point? This comes from the work of Carlos Castaneda, the teachings of Don Juan, and that is supposed to be movable. So here's what I have to say about Carlos Castaneda and the teachings of Don Juan. There's some good, valuable, interesting stuff to learn about from those books. Please don't take them literally. They are all completely allegorical. They are all fictional, even though he originally wrote them saying, I'm a cultural anthropologist and everything that I'm saying here is truthful. Later on, it became obvious and he had to recant and say, oh no, this is a composite character. Don Juan is a composite character. No, he was not a Yaqui Indian. He was a completely different type of Indian. And they, Castaneda used that character and the characters in that book to, share, ancient wisdom that he had learned from a variety of different sources. Take those books with many, many, many grains of salt. And also Castaneda, in elder age, went totally off the rails and totally became like a cult leader. And he slept with this cult people, like ladies. My words don't even describe it effectively. Just to say that there are serious ethical considerations about his behavior. So, super yellow caution flags on Castaneda as a person. Take the books as allegory or fiction, and understanding that there's good stuff in there. So the good stuff that's in there is the idea that Don Juan was speaking about humans being trapped, farmed for energy by malevolent overlords of consciousness, very similar to what I speak about here. And Don Juan describes this thing that's called the assemblage point, which would be analogous to the needle of awareness. If I get my little sculpture here. And in the book, in the Castaneda books, they describe it as an egg of awareness, not a double torus, all right? So they're doing like a simplification. But the idea of having bundled timelines is accurate or is apt. And the idea was that in this bundle of timelines making up your body, that the assemblage point is like your focal point, that is like the needle of awareness that determines what reality you're experiencing. So I would say that the assemblage point is not the singularity. That's what I'm pointing at right here. That's the singularity, the convergence point. The assemblage point would be like the edge of my pen. That if my pen is at an angle, here I am hitting the membrane of death. Can you see that in front of my face? Hitting the membrane right there. But if my pen is aligned like this, then it goes all the way up and goes back to the source, which is also the destination. So it's like the assemblage point would be considered like the needle on the record, old-fashioned record, like a Led Zeppelin record, where the needle goes around like this and actually plays the grooves. The needle of awareness. This is literally what comes out of, it's your attention that comes out of your inner eye and touches on a timeline, just like an RNA messenger that is reading your DNA and literally creating reality. Okay, good question. Thank you, Joelle. Joelle says, what is the difference between the natural singularity and the AI one? Fantastic. So I'll use that as an opportunity to reiterate, I'm not a transhumanist. And when I speak about the singularity, I am using this word differently than science's definition. Science defines the super stretching of the fabric of time and space at the center of a black hole as being the singularity and the place where all rules of reality break down. I'm defining it as this convergence point where all these timelines converge, and also as infinity and the zeroth dimension. Some people are using the word singularity in order to talk about a mythological moment that represents the blending of human and machine, or man and machine. So that's why I'm super cautious. And again, I recorded these lessons like 6 years ago at this point, and words are now used in language and in this culture in a different way sometimes. So I've had to make distinctions about what I'm actually speaking about. I'm not a transhumanist, and when I talk about the singularity, I am not talking about what would happen if humans got a bunch of microchips implanted in their brains, or if humans got a nanotechnology neural lace that went through all of the cells of their body that somehow connected them to the internet so that you didn't have to type things on your computer. So so the basic cultural premise is that we as individuated humans that are natural beings have been moving closer and closer towards that moment where our minds are no longer separate from the minds of, a computer or any kind of thing like that. So I will be super clear in describing my position here. have always said that in order for us to reach the highest transcendent states that we possibly can, we don't need no stinking technology. We don't need no stinking anything. We don't need cell phones. We don't need any of that stuff. We can literally reach these highest levels of transformation and potential with nothing more than our birthday suits, with nothing more than everything that we came here into the world with. So you have a physical body, organic multicellular body. You've got a spark of consciousness. You've got, a spirituality, or let's call it a life force energy, or chi, or prana. You've got heart. Where's my piano? Where you got it? You make a tone called love. You've got heart. You've got imagination. You've got creativity. You've got a sense of self. Those are the things. You've got willpower. Those are the things that you need to be able to do the flying rainbow lasagna. So any of the things that you got to get when you come here, like I got to get money, I got to get earrings, I got to get whatever, a cell phone. You don't need any of those things. Although you do need, like, I live in a house. I have a comfortable bed. I have a cup that I drink my water out of. Like, you need those things. You need to be comfortable in order to do this self-cultivation and transformation. But you do not need technology. You don't need a magic elixir. You don't need Ormus. I don't even know what that stuff is, but I mean, people are taking it. I think it's doing something for them. You don't need a magical molecule. All that you need is exactly what you are. So the transhumanists talk about the singularity as like a good thing that is happening in our culture that is somehow going to be liberation for humanity. And I do not promote that idea at all. I do not think that blending yourself as a biological infrastructure with technology will give you freedom. No, not at all. I think that's that complete opposite. So huge yellow caution flags on the idea of eating some microchips for breakfast and you think you're going to be smarter and better and more free. In fact, all of those are dead end timelines. All the times when humans and humanity or this culture chose to do that, if this is, my hand is made out of timelines, these are all like the ends. It gets to the end, like it's a dead end. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not sustainable. So it is a huge sacrifice of who you are on a basic level. It's a terrible trade. Like I'll trade my humanity, but I'll get some microchips. Like it's a terrible trade. Don't do it. Okay, Pedro is making a good distinction. He says natural singularity is the source. AI singularity is a convergence of organic and technology. Yes, I think that is a perfect assessment of what is going on. So I'm using the word the singularity in order to describe the convergence point of all possible timelines. And in this way, it is similar to science's definition of the infinitely stretched fabric where the rules of physics break down. At the center of a black hole, the rules of physics break down. In a more humorous side note, a commenter on a previous YouTube video said, Aurora, I ain't following you into no black hole. Like, I'm out of here. Because I think that they were misinterpreting by saying that if I say, this is the singularity and this is the source and the destination, and science describes the center of a black hole as being the singularity, that therefore I'm somehow inviting you or encouraging you to dive into a black hole as a way of reaching your destination and your source. And that is erroneous. That is not what I am promoting as an idea to you at all. So I thought that was a rather amusing misconception. And I think that I clarified it for that person, and I will clarify it for everyone here again. Wait. Okay, so Joelle says, thank you. I wasn't quite sure what they defined as the singularity. Like if it's also someplace that AI is trying to harvest our consciousness into, like an AI religious heaven. Joelle, you make a lovely point that I think is very apt. That what would the experience be like if you blended your mind with some kind of technology or machine mind? What would the experience be like? Is it like something like the Borg from Star Trek or any one of these, dystopian fantasies? In many ways, I think that your assessment is correct. That I say, respectfully, just trying to give a cautionary tale here, that most of Earth's surface religions are death cult religions, and that they are a long con, a con game that was incepted thousands of years ago, leading up to this moment, so that when humans are faced with a choice, like chocolate or vanilla, stay my regular organic self or meld with machine, that there would be some sense of like, oh, melding with machine will bring me into heaven. That I'll be uploaded to a virtual reality fantasy land and I'll never die and I'll never degrade and I'll never get sick and then blah, blah, blah. That I think that there is some expectation that it would be a fun, comfortable, happy, quote unquote, heavenly experience. There's a good Black Mirror episode about this that is called San Junipero. So I use that as my kind of cultural shorthand. The idea that your consciousness is uploaded into an interim world that is not the physical world, but wherein you can experience all of the pleasures or, pursuits of the physical world. It sounds so great, like, oh, if you were trapped in a wheelchair, then you can finally go hang gliding and have all these wonderful experiences, except you get stuck. Like if I put you in a little jar of paint, I'm going to stick you in a little jar, I'm going to put a little top on it, and I'm going to keep my paint fresh. And that's what they can do with your consciousness. If you're like, oh, sure, I'll just get into your happy fantasy land and then be trapped there for however many millennia. So I advise against it. I do not think that it is a good idea. And to clarify, heaven is real. Heaven is really freaking real, but heaven is not the heaven that is described in the Bible. It's not the Christian fantasy land. It's the stars. Like there's a reason why we call the stars the heavens. And I say this all the time, spoiler alert, the stars are you and I. We become the stars and we live in heaven, but it is not the Christian heaven, but I'm not making fun of your religion or a cross. This is related to Christ consciousness, not the Christian doctrine of the church on earth. So Joelle is agreeing with Pedro and says, yeah, like you have to die to go to heaven and be with God. When really you're dying and they're harvesting all the souls of humanity like the rapture. You totally understand. So let's say I was a totally evil alien. I'm an evil alien with like mean teeth. And I'm like, I'm going to eat those humans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them that at the end of the world, some wonderful thing is going to come out of the sky and say, oh, you don't got to get burned in rivers of lava. Come with me, climb aboard. It can be Jesus. It can be a Pegasus, a unicorn, a flying clank metal spaceship. And you'd be like, oh, I read about this in that book that told me that when the rivers of lava come, be sure to jump on board the magical Pegasus and then I'll be fine. And that the magical Pegasus is actually like a computer simulation and that it's not actually a real supernatural loving being. So a big part of cultivating higher faculties and developing your own perception insight is developing the capacity to sense truth. Like when you use this and you touch on something, you can taste it. It's like tasting with your tongue, and you're like, like that tastes true. Look, no, that tastes like poop. And you can tell what's true and what's not true. Pedro says, but it's a trap. You'll be trapped in the membrane, and they will have a simulation of you here in the physical world. I don't know about if there's a distinction between being trapped or having a simulation in the physical world, but I agree with you that it is a trap. That being uploaded into any kind of quote unquote virtual reality fantasy land is not freedom at all. And it is the dangling carrot that has been used to manipulate many people in this time and place, kind of like that movie The Matrix, where the character Cypher is like, oh yeah, I'm just some total miscreant, I'm not very good, but all I want to do is get amnesia, reinsert me so I can eat steak in the Matrix. There are a lot of people who have a similar attitude here in this time and place. They're like, I don't got no values, I don't got no ethics, I don't care about nothing, just give me a comfy gig where I can eat steak. They would happily get uploaded to some kind of virtual reality fantasy land, as long as they got a cushy gig. As long as they got plenty of money, as long as they can eat the steak. Like they ain't going to be uploaded to some virtual reality where they got to dig a ditch, or where they're feeling ill, or where, whatever, like as long as they're okay. So whatever. And I've said this before also, that all the people who are selling out humanity, who are traitors literally to humanity, to their own bodies and to this planet, and I'm talking about whatever, there's some very rich people that fall into this category. They keep thinking like, oh yeah, they're going to go to San Junipero and they're going to be at the top of the crop. They think they're going to have like a really cushy existence because they're used to that here. These are the people that own the yachts. And they think, oh, if I own yachts here in this crappy, mundane reality, when I get uploaded to the virtual reality, I'm going to have even better than yachts. Like they really think that. That's what motivates them to sell out all of humanity here. But ironically enough, when they actually get to the virtual reality fantasy land, they get put in with the slush fund of the rest of humanity because you've made a deal with the devil, and the devil doesn't really freaking care about you, and so you get tortured along with everyone else. Anyway, isn't it so ironically funny? But anyway, Teddy makes a beautiful comment, says, you would give up your freedom to the programmer. That is incredibly intelligent and really excellent point to make. So my collective, my values, who I am as Aurora, this is all about freedom. It's why I'm motivated to be here. It is why I'm motivated to share the Flying Rainbow Lasagna conceptually with you so that everyone here can be more free. So I help everyone to be more free by my embodiment, by being here. It's like if you have a light bulb that brings more light to the room, like, people can see better. That helps. So I'm like a light bulb bringing more light to the room. And also, humans can use this in order to transcend levels of reality. That's freedom. If you choose to go to San Junipero, you're like, I don't want freedom, just give me a cushy gig where I can eat steak in the Matrix. And a lot of people don't care about freedom. They just want to have a cushy gig. And I'm completely the opposite of that. I'm like, wow, I would way rather be free and uncomfortable than to be very comfortable in a cage. And the real reason for that is, if you're comfortable in a cage, can't change your cage, you can't get out of it, you can't affect your situation at all. But if you are uncomfortable in freedom, then it's like, I'm sitting on a thumbtack, I don't like it. How about I get up and go somewhere else? Like, you can change your life. Joelle says, we've done this before, all of this, haven't we, Aurora? Ding! History has been repeating itself. It reminds me of the Ouroboros symbol, the snake eating its tail. Is this really talking about a time loop? I would say it's a time loop, or let's say a fractal micro miniature. This is like when you have a hologram and you take a shard of that hologram, it contains the elements of the whole. So what happened at the end of Atlantis is very much what a similar representation or reflection of what we're experiencing right now. And it's not a simple reproduction that it's like, we're just going to keep on reproducing the same exact mistakes. No, it's a refinement. So that's a big cautionary takeaway of all of this, that if you think, at the end of Atlantis, we turned on an artificial America bot, like 5G, everybody went cuckoo crazy. It affected everybody's DNA. Everybody's DNA stopped spinning in the right way. And then our planet slumped over on its axis. And we had crustal displacement, and lots of people died, and we lost our memory. So that's all going to happen again. No. What can happen this time is the rectification. So that's when I say, fractal microcosmic shard, because that microcosmic shard also contains within it the homeopathic remedy, or completely diluted remedy to the initial aggravation or the initial thing that incepted the disease. So the initial invasion of our planet, we have a little homeopathic dose that's a solution. And what we're experiencing right now, we've got the antibodies. So it's not like, oh, we all have to get uploaded to virtual reality fantasy land and live in misery for many more, torment. It's like Groundhog's Day. You don't have to circulate around endlessly again for however many more millennia. You can transcend. So not a loop, because I would consider a loop to be like a circle, closed circle with no way out. I would consider this to be a spiral, where we are actually we're actually getting somewhere with each of our circular movements, and that it has a culmination, and that culmination is a point of freedom. So these are, I'm amazed at the quality of insight in the questions that are being asked here. So thank you very much for that. Let me just make sure that I get through I'm looking at my notes to get through all the things that are important for level 1, because I'm getting to the end of my time on that. Hold on a second. Okay, so a big thing on Newton and this idea of the rainbows and the light waves is the speed of light. This is one of the bars on the cage of human mentality, that I'm here in order to remove that bar so that everybody can be more free and move in, more glorious directions. So Newton said, we're only going to measure what we can measure with our 5 senses. And Einstein came along and basically said, yeah, there is a limit to the speed of light. This is like what is established in this culture as basic truths of reality. So we're not talking about the ancient Mayans or the ancient Vikings or whatever, what they thought about the speed of light. Everybody here and now has been programmed with this idea that there's an expectation, there's a limit to the speed of light. There's only so fast that light can go as it's traveling on its little waveform journey. And as I spoke about in other presentations, if we only believe in the linear journey of light and how fast it can travel according to that description, then we can never get information from the center of our galaxy. Not never. Let's say by the time it gets to us, it's a moot point. So if this is the center of our galaxy and there's a supermassive black hole there, and it's sending off thought waves in all these different directions. And those thought waves, according to science, can only travel as fast as the speed of light. Like here's a little photon and it's traveling at the speed of light. It's, 186,000 miles per second. And that's as fast as it can go. So it can take billions of years for it to reach us. We're this little X out here. We live like out in Nowheresville. It takes a long time for a light wave to get to us in terms of linear movement. So by the time, an impulse happens and travels out to us over here, it can be hundreds, thousands, millions, billions of years. By the time we receive that light here, it's a moot point. It's like the party's over. Like I got an invitation to a party, the party's over. Like, wait, why were you even talking about this? So in order for us to have any kind of a real-time rapport between ourselves and the galactic center, or why should we have a real-time rapport? What the heck are you talking about? That galactic center is like our brain. And we're like out here on the pinky, experiencing life on Earth. And it can take however long for that neural signal to travel all the way between us, but we're connected. We're part of the same body. You should be able to talk to the brain. You should be able to hear from the brain. So this idea of the limitation of the speed of light has not been a help to humanity. So Newton helped us by bringing us out of the realm of pure superstition. So we weren't going to burn witches anywhere because I accuse you of superstitious stuff. It's like, no, where's your evidence? And then Einstein brought us into further degrees of freedom of consciousness by saying, hey, wait a minute, observership, like we're not just the physical realm that we're looking at, we're understanding that observership affects the material realm. But Einstein also gave us that thing of the limitation of the speed of light, that Einstein tells us, nothing can ever go faster than the speed of light. So I spoke about this on last week's presentation, folding the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. If you're the little ant, and let's say my hand is a leaf, you're walking on the surface of a leaf and you don't have wings and you have to walk all the way over to here to get to here and then crawl down the stem and then walk up the next leaf. That's very different than being like a butterfly that can jump off the surface of the leaf and fly all the way over to here. So let's say this is Earth and this is the galactic center. Oh, look, I'm a little ant. I gotta walk all the way across here. This is taking freaking forever. Oh, I can't get across here because everybody's dead. And what if I really want to have an immediate conversation in real time with this person over here talking to this person over here? What I can do is flying rainbow lasagna. I can unfold the fabric of space, time, and consciousness so that now these two places are almost touching. And then there are places or places in time, consciousness and ideas and energy can be shared. So you can actually get the neural impulses from the brain all the way out in the periphery without having to wait hundreds or maybe millions of years. And this is necessary to be part of the civilized, widespread galactic culture. So people talk about how Earth is sequestered or quarantined or stuck, not like you're not able to talk to everybody else that's out there and have a real civilization, be sophisticated on that level. And part of the reason for that is because everyone is thinking that it has to be through linear forms of communication. And, like sending out radio waves, radio signals are similar. Radio signals or light signals or laser signals or something like that has to travel in a long beam as opposed to understanding the necessity of folding time and space. So Earth surface science has a lot of catching up to do on that. I'm checking my lists of everything. So, yes. Mindful eating. This is actually lesson 4 of level 1. I don't know if I've emphasized it enough, but one of the ways that we make that connection, because this is all about reconnecting, right? Like reconnecting to the sun and the stars. So one of the ways that we make that reconnection is through mindful eating, because food is solidified sunlight. And when we are eating it, in that moment of tasting it and ingesting its textures and its nourishment, we can transmit back that experience. That is like going from the general to the specific again. If I go back to this over here, there we go. This, if we take, I'm eating a hamburger. I'm eating a hamburger, and that's happening down here in the red realm, and it gets refined up. This is also in the Hindu tradition known as the raising the Kundalini. And I'm not a Hindu and I don't know all about it. I'm just trying to use examples and allegories from Earth culture. So also I talk about this in the online lessons. The Hindu tradition, Hinduism and Buddhism, and the information about the chakras that comes from the Far East relative to where I live, is those are vestigial traces from the sophisticated antediluvian worldwide culture known as Atlantis. So some of the puzzle pieces from ancient Atlantis fell into the hands of the ancient Egyptians. Some of them went to the ancient Maya. We're talking about all the different continents. It was scattered like different seeds. Some of it went to, China and India in the Far East. So the tradition of being able to understand the chakras and perceive them and know what's going on with them is part of that. And then this idea of the raising of the energy from the base of your spine. So the energy from the base of your spine, I call this lesson is called the rainbow journey. It's basically a loop, a circular, circuit, literally, coming from the source, from this place that emanates us as consciousness, being refracted and split up into all the different elements that make us who we are, the different colors of the rainbow, having experiences, and then, this is big, reweaving those experiences back into unity consciousness. That is the big magical or alchemical transformation that happens when you take all of these different divergent layers of being, your physicality and your emotions and your intellect and your higher faculties and everything. Some of them are very dense levels of being, some of them are not dense, and it's like a chord where we are playing all of these notes at once. All of the notes at once, not in serial. We're playing all of these chakras at once. So we take all of those perfectly tuned colors, and through additive color mixing, we put red plus orange plus green plus blue plus indigo plus violet, all fixes together again to become that divinity, to become that white light. Not the God of the Bible. This class already knows what I'm talking about. Stacy Maliski. Lovely to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I think you are a new student. So Stacy says, I've seen so many videos of and shows of predictions made over 100 years ago that have all come to pass. If everything in life is scripted, what is our part? This is a good question. It seems impossible to predict the whole world's consciousness and events hundreds of years in the future. So I don't believe that everything is scripted. If we look at this shape, or the chakra shapes, these are bundles of timelines, bundles of possibilities and probabilities. And this shape literally represents everything from the least likelihood, you wake up in the morning and an alligator bites your face off, to the most likely thing that happens. You wake up in the morning and you have a cup of coffee and, you do your usual routine and brush your teeth. various bundles of possibility. It all exists. That's like saying there's a musical score. You know, there's a great composer that was like, okay, everybody, this is what you're going to play. This is the song that you're going to play in life. And you are a jazz musician. I know we've got something loud going by outside. We'll just take a moment while they're just sweeping the streets. Our streets will be very clean. Okay. This is what the great composer is saying. I want you to play these notes. I want you to play it like that. But you're like, all right, composer, but I'm a jazz musician. I don't just want to play it like that. I mean, maybe I want to play that, but maybe I want to play it like this. Maybe you want to jazz it up a little is what I'm trying to say. So we are not merely experiencers. This is the idea between fate and, you know, if you're fate and destiny, if you're a fatalist, or if you believe in free will and the capacity to innovate. And that is definitely what I believe in, the free will and the capacity to innovate. I don't believe that there is some far distant, cold, unfeeling, far distant scriptwriter that was like, I will write what's going to happen in your life, and then it will all happen to you, and then you got cancer, and then you got a car accident. I don't think all of those things. What I think is that the idea of like potentials exist in your life, and then it is about where you place the needle of your awareness on the record that determines what song you actually play. And even if you don't like those songs, what if you looked at the record of your life and you're like, I don't like any of these songs? You know what you can do? You can write a new song, and that's totally appropriate. And when you do that, you reach levels of virtuosity that you basically recognize, like, wait, all of these songs are crappy because they involve suffering and, death and things that I don't want to experience. And that was not part of the original music. So if you're a really good musician, you're like, wait, this doesn't seem like the right music at all. You can tell. You know that it's not the right music to play, so you can innovate something else. So I am not a fatalist. I believe that we have the capacity to rewrite the script, innovate something new, and that's what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is all about. So this has to do with predicting stuff in the future. So I really am not a believer in prophecies for this reason, that since the invention of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, this is like the capacity to rearrange reality. All of the prophecies that have been written prior to 2001 are no longer relevant. Those are all the things that would have happened before we can hit the big red button, press the improbability drive, rearrange the structure of reality. And every time you do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you shake up the salad dressing and rearrange the structure of reality. I've done the Flying Rainbow Lasagna a million billion times. Every time I did that, it superseded or negated or restructured reality. It made those prophecies irrelevant. So if you're looking at the end of the Bible and you're reading and you're like, okay, and then there were like horses, and then this happened, and then this happened, that's an old prophecy. It is not relevant. And let's say you have a prophecy that is given to you this morning, and then I do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna this afternoon. By this afternoon, the prophecy of this morning is no longer relevant because I keep on shaking up the salad dressing. And I'm not the only person shaking up the salad dressing here. There's a lot of us. So prophecies are not an effective way of being able to navigate reality. Even if you pay some kind of a fortune teller, I'm going to pay a fortune teller to look into their crystal ball and tell me what's happening. They will only be accurate until the big red button gets pushed again and reality gets rearranged again. So a much more effective way for navigating reality is to get enough gas in your car so that you can activate your inner telescope and you can actually see your own future. Instead of saying a prophecy from 2,000 years ago writes that blah, blah will happen at this point on this day, you can see it. You don't have to look at something from thousands of years ago. You can see it happening. And I understand the need for guidance. Everyone's like, what the F do I do around here? Help me, guide me. But prophecies from thousands of years ago will not be helpful in guiding you. And they might even tell you to go to San Junipero. They're like, those prophecies do not come from your friends, is what I'm trying to say. Super yellow caution flags. Stacy says, on a clear, dark night when all the stars light up the sky, I like to think they look down on us and the light workers and the stars to them that light up the earth. Yeah, the stars are conscious and they're absolutely observing us in our miniature mundane experiences and care about us. And we're like their art projects and we're very much connected to them. Denz says, in re-food, so would meat be more of a dense food that is harder to transmute up to the higher vibratory levels? It really depends on the meat. So for example, if you have meat that comes from an animal that was not horribly tortured and it lived a relatively good life and you didn't feed it a bunch of GMO crap, that meat is actually of a what's less dense or higher frequency, or is a better tune, it's more in tune, like real music, than something like genetically modified soybean tofu. Okay? This is big, because my feelings about veganism are not merely to say, oh, eating one organism is better than or supersedes eating another organism. No, it has the quality of what is the consciousness or life force energy of that organism. So genetically modified corn gluten, or, oh my God, there's all this wheat gluten crap, like fake protein that they put into, processed vegan stuff. That processed vegan, crappy junk food is not of a better quality of consciousness than something like some bison jerky that, you got from whatever that was minimally processed from an animal that lived a relatively good life, or whatever, salmon jerky that's not contaminated with cesium. This is what I'm trying to say. Food choices in this time and place are not as simple as plant or animal or which is better. You have to be super yellow caution flags about pollution and things like that. And also think about this also, well, whatever. I came into this body and I have had to become more dense and become more a part of this body. And so it all depends. Like some people need to be on a diet to reduce because they're very, very overweight. Some people need to be on a diet to gain muscles and fat because they're underweight. So there is not a one-size-fits-all diet plan in terms of what levels of density people need to eat. Don't eat genetically modified crap. Like that's for real. That's like putting poorly tuned guitars into your guitar will make your guitar go out of tune. So don't eat that crap. But if you choose to get your if it's all of it is uncontaminated and all of it is not polluted and all of it is not genetically modified, then it is up to your individual journey. Do you need to become more dense or less dense? I needed to become more dense. I used to be incredibly skinny and not actually very much here and in my body. I needed to become more dense and to, grow muscles and to be part of the mundane world. And some people are in the opposite direction and they need to become less dense. So eat for your own particular direction that you need to go. But the big takeaway here is, so I'm talking about this as the magic or the alchemical transmutation of taking all these individual colors and reweaving them together, additive color mixing back up to white light. We do that when we eat. If I'm like, oh, like this is the most tasty food in the whole entire world, I'm gonna, and like as I'm eating it, what I'm doing, she just got all so excited. Did you see that? Because she thought that I was eating something good over here. When I'm doing that and I'm tasting, I'm loving my food. And I am combining essences, my body with the body of this thing that I'm eating. Like because there's a lot of stuff in humans' viewpoint of lovemaking or sexuality that is about exploitation, even to the word getting screwed. Like the idea that someone is always getting more, someone is always getting less. There's always a unequal exploitation relationship. And people tend to project that onto their physical food that they're eating. They always think like, oh, it's not fair. I'm the human and I'm oppressing you, poor little organism, and I'm eating you and it's not fair. No, it should be cosmic lovemaking. It should be like, oh, my lips are touching yours. This tastes so delicious. Thank you for coming inside of me. Like that's what it should be. Like what? We're like, I'm making love to a chicken. Yes, make love to a chicken. Make love to its fibers as it comes inside of your body. Make love to a mango. Make love to it as you're eating it. And the big takeaway is at a certain point, you will not have a physical structure anymore. You will not eat chickens and mangoes. So what we are doing is taking the analog experience of being here embodied in a physicality and making memories that are like records that are intangible objects that we can access even when we no longer have this level of physicality. So we honor our food by remembering it and transmitting it to the sun in a clear way. It's like saying, here's what it sounds like. That's my chicken. That's my mango. That's what it tastes like. Send it to the sun. Yes, Yana is agreeing with me about like the vegan, highly processed, glutinous, crappy stuff that they sell over there. I know. Denz is saying there's a debate if something does not want to be eaten as it is in fight or flight mode, but I totally understand your stance. Everyone is different and needs different nourishment. Yeah, and there's a good philosophical argument to be had about if in the moment of killing an animal, if it releases some kind of poisonous negative chemicals, it's like feeling fear and everything like that. Plants release chemicals that are evidence of its distress when it is being eaten. So, and this is actually interesting. Like if you have an option at the farmer's market, like there's these lettuces over here that nothing is chewed on their leaves, and there's these ones over here, and some of the leaves look like, a little pest chewed on them a little bit, but the leaves are still alive. that one with the slightly chewed leaves is actually slightly more nutritious, because what happens is the bugs chew on the plant's leaves, but they don't kill the plant entirely, and the plant sends out energy and biochemical sensors to the leaves that say, hey, you're getting eaten by leaves, produce these chemicals in order to make the bugs, you're getting eaten by bugs, produce these chemicals to get them off your leaves. So there actually are like these specific nutrient chemicals that are getting the bugs off it, supposedly, whatever. But plants have defense mechanisms. They're called lectins, Lectin. It's a type of anti-nutrient. And almost all of the plants that we eat contain anti-nutrients. So some of the plants have already been pre-processed to take out their anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients make a tummy ache. So nuts have tons of anti-nutrients in them. How do you eat peanut butter? You have to roast them. When you roast them, the anti-nutrients go away. Roast them or boil them. A lot of plants, their anti-nutrients go away if you expose them to heat or if you dry them. So you have to process them, and sometimes you have to soak them. Like acorns are edible, but they are filled with tannins and other anti-nutrients. They're only edible if you soak them many, many, many times and wash the anti-nutrients away. So this is why you have to do things like soak beans, soak legumes. They're better if they're sprouted. So the point that I'm trying to make philosophically is that people say, oh, if I want to eat that bunny rabbit. I want to eat that bunny rabbit. The bunny rabbit is running away. Clearly, it does not want to be eaten. Plants have defense mechanisms like thorns and lectins and other things like that that clearly show the plant does not want to be eaten. They have serrated edges, like they have systolic hairs that if you put those things in your tummy, you get a tummy ache, because they don't want deer and other things like that to come along and eat all of the plants. The plants need to survive. So both plants and animals have defense mechanisms that say to humans and other animals, don't eat me. And guess what? We eat them anyway because we're hungry and because we need to do that in this level of society. So until we turn into pure energy eaters, eating pure light or pure prana or whatever you would like to describe it as, I find that there is not a viable moral distinction between eating plants or eating animals. And that many people who are plant eaters, they say you're wrong if you're an animal eater, and they do not look to the impact that plant production has on the overall environment. It's not just methane from cows that is causing things to be out of balance. And we need to focus on building soil. And when we have vast herds of bison going across the American Great Plains, this is how soil gets built. And so humans have created these horrible, factory farms where the cattle are kept in these little pens. Cattle aren't allowed to act like real cows. They're not allowed to do what they're supposed to do is walk around a lot, eating a lot of grass and pooping it out. And that's how you build soil. So over hundreds of years of farming in the Midwest, they've depleted the soil. There's not a lot of micronutrients in the soil anymore. And all this is because we don't have animals that are ruminants that are walking around eating stuff and pooping it out. That's the way it's supposed to be. Pedro says, then we eat the poor photons who want to continue traveling in space. Then you understand. If I eat a photon, the photon comes inside of me and I can immediately beam it back to the sun so that it's not stuck inside of me. It is flowing through me. So this is really, really different. The difference between stagnant water, like a little pool of water that's just sitting there, it's not going anywhere, as opposed to water that flows from someplace, goes in a stream, and then flows back to the original place. It continues onward. That's what we're supposed to do with our photons. The photons are supposed to come from the sun and the stars, come into us, be refracted, be refined, come back into unity consciousness, and then get beamed back to the sun and the stars. A flow, an unbroken circuit, not getting stuck within us. So here's another thing we're supposed to beam back to the sun and the stars. What we see with our eyes, when we hear with our ears. So this might be harder to understand because this is not, photons are not going in my ears. Photons are going in my eyes. All of us have photons going in our eyes right now. And those photons would be stuck on their journey if you don't transmit the consciousness back to the sun of what the photons are seeing. These photons are bouncing off up here and bouncing into my eyes, and they look like rainbow colors. And then my consciousness is connected to the sun and is beaming that back in real time. So it's not being trapped inside of me. It is a flow that is flowing out here and then flowing back there. So that is a really critical distinction to make, because what we're doing is not trapping resources, exploiting resources, taking them away from where they're supposed to be. We're not stealing them. If we are part of this circuit and this flow between divinity and ourselves, then we're loving We're loving. You're loving your food. This food love's so good. Loving the stars. I'm loving my body. That is what we are supposed to do. It is totally non-exploitive. Okay, that's what Pedro says. So we share photons with the source. Yes, that is exactly right. Almost at the end of this recording, let me check my notes to make sure that I got everything that I wanted to do. Let's talk about conscious orgasm. So I talked already about conscious eating. And that is one way that we take photons from the sun and the stellar network, refine them, and send them back. Orgasm is another. And, I have a whole teaching that's all about sexuality. And I have in other semesters been like, let's just gloss over this because it's hard to find the levels of maturity that are needed. Not people in this class, but I'm always concerned about if the videos are released into the wild. But I'm, whatever. I'm superseding all those concerns and just talking about sexuality at this point. So sexual satisfaction and orgasm and release is absolutely connected to this phenomenon of energy raising from the base of the spine, reweaving together all these layers of being and then reconnecting to the sun and the stars. So we usually understand and interpret that in terms of orgasm that is had due to sexual stimulation in partnership. It can also be a spontaneous experience of orgasm. But that's what that feeling is. That's like ding, like those rides, you do them like at a state fair, like you try to hit something with the hammer, and if you hit it hard enough, then it rises on up and it makes a little ding. See, like who's the strongest. And that's what orgasm is. It's like ding, you made all of that energy rise up your spine and get to this point, ding. So it's not always, yes, Chloe says you were talking about Kundalini. Yes, I'm talking about Kundalini, even though I'm not a practitioner of yoga or trained in the understandings of the Hindu culture and the Far East. So I want to make sure that I'm using that word in the right way. It's my understanding that Kundalini describes that. It describes the energy that is cultivated in a reservoir at the base of your spine and is raised upward. Come on up, baby. Come on up. There we go. Come on over here. Jump, 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 jump. There you go. We need some kissing. Thank you very much, everybody. We just need a moment here. Good, 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 good. So Kundalini is sometimes interpreted as a sexual experience, like with a partner or without a partner, but it can also be experienced spontaneously as like a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And I know some people have had that experience, but it's definitely better to be prepared in your body to have your chakras balanced and in alignment so that when that energy suddenly goes whoop and goes up, it doesn't make your everything shimmy apart. Like if you have your tires of your car are not in good alignment and you drive down the road at high speeds, your entire car starts to shake apart and you get like, lack of efficiency in your machine. And if your chakras are just like tires, if they are not effectively aligned, then as you put more and more energy through them, like with something like a spontaneous raising of the Kundalini up your spine, then everything starts to shake and shimmy apart. So I know someone that had this experience. The Dalai Lama came to visit our little town in Woodstock and gave a speech on the public, like on the softball field. And lots of people came, and it was just for our town. And I knew this guy, and he sat out there and everything, and he had this spontaneous Kundalini rising, and he was not a very prepared person in terms of his spirituality. He knocked his socks off, and it took a long time for him to integrate all that. Chike, I want you to know you have a fan club, and everybody loves you. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful appreciation. Thank you for understanding if she barks in the background there. Very good. Okay, so having a conscious orgasm is another way of connecting with the sun. That this is another way, just like the food that we eat connects us with the sun and the stars, that literally having an orgasm and having it consciously, like not just people look at in this time and place, treat orgasm like a disposable thing. Like, I just got to get rid of this sexual energy in some way. That's not what I'm talking about, but it is having a conscious and respectful use of sexual energy. That is another way of reconnecting with the sun. I talked all about the singularity. I'm looking at my notes over here. See, good. So, okay. So the main theme here, and I got most of everything done, is making a bridge between yourself and the sun, or yourself and the stars. And the sun is just our nearest star. So that's what this is. It is a rainbow journey, and it is basically an unbroken bridge between yourself as an individual, like your little fractal microcosmic shard of the sun and the stars, and reconnecting with that Joel is saying, yes, your pelvic bowl is like a holder of this energy. That is exactly right. So when I do sun gazing and I do these other energy works, I usually sit with my legs crossed so that literally my lap makes like a bowl, like a vessel that is for holding this energy, and it's life force energy. And it can be also, it's so affiliated with sexual energy, but it's not interchangeable. And it is not necessarily the sexual energy of partnership, even though it can be. And it's beautiful when it's expressed in that way. I want everyone to know, like, being able to express that level of profound connection through orgasmic conscious sexuality to the stars with a partner, like a man and a woman actually doing this together in the physicality, is one of the most amazing miracles that you can possibly do. Like, I'm not trying to counsel everyone like, oh, you should all be asexual and never have a partner or anything like that. No, but what I'm trying to say is a lot of sexuality in this time and place is really unhealthy, and that these are not conscious orgasms, and that they're being treated like potato chips or whatever. Give me the next one, crunch, crunch. Give me the next one, crunch, crunch. That is not respected for the magical, profound thing that it actually is. But when you have a partner, when you respect it in that way, it can be a magical, transformative, very profound thing. So this says that she had to practice a guided pranayama before her kundalini was raised up to her head, had to prepare first. Very good. I do not know what pranayama is, so if you could tell us that, that would be very helpful. She says, it's also a mix of 4 different energies, not just sexual. Thank you. Very informative. So I got through everything that I need to get through in level 1. Let me end the recording for right now because it's going to be a little bit long. Let me go into level 2. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Salud, for your expertise. Oh, and Joelle's asking, pranayama is breath work? And Salud says, yes. Oh, it's a breathing technique up and down the spine. Thank you very much. That is very helpful.